And here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the June session of the Accelerator Call. I am so happy to welcome you. If you do not know who I am, my name is Mindy Stern, and I host the Accelerator Call every month. And every month we have a fabulous speaker. This month we're welcoming Linda Brubaker to join us today. And we have some other fabulous folks on the call today. So I'm so glad that you're all here. If this is the first time on one of our calls, if you would just mind put a number 1 in the chat so I can welcome you properly. I think Melanie might be number 1, might be the first time on one of our calls, but I see a lot of really familiar faces. Yep, Melanie, welcome. Welcome. I see lots of familiar faces today. And if we are not connected, I think I'm probably connected to most of you. Feel free to connect to me. I'm always open for that. We launched the Accelerator Career Group back in 2020, where this month in June, we're celebrating 5 years, and we're doing a reunion Zoom call with all the founders of the Accelerator Group. When we started, it was the heart of COVID. It was June of 2020. So many people had lost their jobs, and a very small group of people who were coming from medical device sales got together for our first Zoom call in June of 2020. And they asked me to join as the career coach. And every single week we hosted that, and we created this beautiful community. And that community still speaks and interacts with each other. Most of those people are now gainfully employed and don't generally join us, but we are doing a reunion so we can catch up with each other. So that's the kind of community that we formed. I've been so fortunate to be able to provide people with LinkedIn profile makeovers and job search strategies and interview prep, all things to fast track the job search for everyone who's in this community. And it's my honor to be here and to host this for you. I am thrilled to announce that we have two events that are coming up in the near future. In the last 6 months, I've noticed that more and more of my clients have decided to take their experience and create a side hustle. Some of them are consulting, some of them are doing it while they are still searching for their next job. Others are jumping in feet first and are ready to become entrepreneurs. And so if you've ever thought about becoming a solopreneur, but weren't sure where to start or what kind of structure you might need to make that happen, I am doing an encore presentation of my information session for Be Your Own Boss. If you're interested in doing that or watching it and getting some ideas of whether or not that's the right place for you, join us on June 20th. If you want to know how to go from employee to entrepreneur or colleague to consultant, it's not for everyone, but if you're ready to explore this option, please join me on June 20th, and the link is already in your chat. You can just sign up right there. The other thing that I want to tell you, I'm really excited to tell you that on July 8th, Deanna Russo is joining me here on stage to talk about how to build a sustainable strategy and get results from LinkedIn. Deanna and I have both big advocates of the know, like, and trust networking strategy. And Al Smith is very familiar with that for sure. So we'll be focusing on that in July. And that is also, that link is already in there. I know Brenda will not be there. I know she has a conflict on July 8th, and that's how I knew the date was off, Brenda, when I mentioned it to you, because I know July 8th is a Tuesday. We're going to learn so many things today from Linda Brubaker for sure. And I always like to post golden nuggets. So tomorrow, I will have a post about all the things that we are learning today. And so I'm going to ask you a favor. When you hear something that Linda says or that some other member of our group says that strikes a chord with you or something you want to remember, just jot it down in the chat, because I take those golden nuggets and then I use that to help share with other people who maybe weren't able to join us today. So put the golden nuggets into the chat. I'll create a great post for tomorrow. And then tomorrow you can go back and see what you all said. And I think that's all the housekeeping for today. I am super excited to introduce Linda Brubaker. I met Linda on one of Brenda Meller's VIP calls. while ago. I don't remember how long ago, but we both share the experience of recruiting. And Linda has a deep background of recruiting, so she knows what she's talking about. She hosts a weekly lunch and learn for job seekers. So if you haven't met Linda yet, or you're not part of her lunch and learn, you can definitely meet her today. And this is a perfect opportunity to get to know a little bit more about her. So Linda's gonna do a short presentation, and then we're opening the floor for questions. Anyone who would like to ask a question, please use the raise hand feature. If you don't know where that is, mine is in my more. Some people have it on the bar, but it puts you up to the top of the Zoom room, so I get to see you, and then I can call on you. Okay. So Linda, without further ado, I'm going to send the screen over to you, and welcome. And we're so thrilled that you're here with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the invitation. One of the things about me is that I really love being able to do presentations like this, to talk with job seekers, people in career transition, because as Mindy mentioned, it's not just finding that next forever job. It might be finding that side hustle or that next forever career, and learning new tips and tricks to help you move along the way, giving you that support. Those are the kinds of things that I really enjoy doing. In addition to the fact that, as Mindy mentioned, I also do individualized and group coaching. I work with job seekers and people in career transition to help them think about what their transferable skills are, what they really enjoy doing, what they don't, and help them figure out ways of using those transferable skills to talk about what's in it for someone else, to make those transitions, to make those moves into roles that fit better for them as they move forward. So I put my information in the chat, and I'm happy to talk with anybody. By the way, as Mindy mentioned, I do have a career group too that meets every Wednesday at 11 o'clock on Zoom. I'm going to put the information in the chat as well. But I'm excited that tomorrow at 11 o'clock, Kenneth Lang, who calls himself a LinkedIn introvert no more, is going to be our speaker talking about all the best practices on LinkedIn for job seekers. So please join us for that as well. One more thing before I get started. The information that I'm bringing you comes not only from my 8 years as a transitions coach, but also from over 20 years in HR. I've been an HR business partner. I've been an internal recruiter. I've been a headhunter, an external recruiter. I've been a hiring manager. And I continue to I do research all the time so that the information that I'm bringing you, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get lots of questions, but the information I'm bringing you is based not only on my experience, my colleagues' experience, but also all the research that I do so that I'm hopefully continually up to date. Okay? So that's a little bit about me. Ready to start the presentation or the talk?
We are ready.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so what we're talking about today is the whole idea of shifting your mindset from what's in it for me to what's in it for them. If you want to be the candidate that really stands out, if you want to be the person who can show that you can solve their problems, you have to be able to demonstrate that you understand what those problems are and that you're focused more on what's in it for them than what's in it for you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about your mindset, a little bit about why that mindset matters. Most of us, when we go into job search, our standard way of thinking about it is, well, what can I get? Here's what I want. As opposed to thinking about that value-driven proposition. What is it that you can bring? Mindy mentioned earlier that whole idea that people hire those that they know, like, and trust. And you want to be the person that they not only know, but you want to be that person that they trust to understand what it is they want and to be able to focus on their needs. So I'm just curious, in the chat, please put in a 0, an S, or an N. Do you include any of these on your resume if you have a current resume out there? An objective, a professional summary, or neither of those? You just get started. Mindy, I can't see the chat, but what are we seeing?
Oh, sorry. They're all S's so far. All
Perfect.
S's. Yeah, 100% S's.
Excellent. Okay. Because you know that when we first started doing resumes, dating myself years ago, we used to talk about an objective. I can't tell you how many resumes I'm still seeing that have that objective up there. That objective really talks about what's in it for you. What are you looking for? Sometimes it's a chance to do something new, making a change. Too many people are using those words also in their professional summaries. Professional summary, as opposed to an objective, really focuses in on what you bring to someone else. It's about who you are in relationship to the job. It's a summary of what you bring, what makes you unique. It could be your opportunity to talk about some of the soft skills that many of us don't recommend that you list in that skills or expertise section, but it's specific to this job in this company. And that professional summary starts to tell that case about what that value proposition is, what you're bringing to this job, and why you're the one who can solve their problems. So when we're thinking about it, I'm going to talk resumes just for a little bit because it's another way of helping to focus what it is we're talking about. And many of us include skills, expertise, or core competencies on a resume. So I'm curious, again, in the chat, what do you include on your resume in that skills, expertise, or core competency section? If it's everything that you can do or those things that you think are most important for the job, then put the word all in the chat. If it's just the key skills drawn from the keywords in the posting, write the word key. I'll give you a minute or two to do that.
We have mostly key, mostly key. We have one all, and everyone else is key, the key skills.
Excellent. And that's, I'll tell you, a great thing, because usually when I'm looking at resumes, people decide to include everything. So they'll take some of the keywords from the resume, but they'll add new things too, because they know that there is so much more that they can do than what's actually listed on the resume. So the advantage of including those core competencies, if you will, the things that not only are in the job, but that added value that you bring, shows all of that added value. You can do so much more than the job posting is asking for. And you know it. We all know it. The other advantage is that if you've got that standard set, you basically have no need to change it every time. You might add a word or two or tweak it, but you have that already set. The disadvantage of using that core competency approach, of adding that same skill set to every job, every resume, every idea that you have out there, is that it really is a little more generic. And as a reader, as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, as I'm looking at that, I may feel that you don't really know what that job is all about. More importantly, I may feel that you don't really want to do the job as written. Because if I say I need somebody who does A, B, C, and D, and you say, I can do A, B, C, and D, but I can also do X, Y, Z, and Q, used to be that was an advantage. Not anymore. Now, employers, hiring managers are really looking for that A, B, C, D on the resume, and in your hiring manager or hiring materials, in your conversations, that X, Y, Z, and Q may be important, but in that initial approach, X, Y, Z, and Q is more of a disadvantage than an advantage. X, Y, Z, and Q says you may be too expensive. X, Y, Z, and Q says you really don't know what this job is all about, or you don't really want to do just this job because that's what this job really is. So you need to make it easy for the reader, what I call the dummy on my side of the desk or the screen, to see what you can do for this job. So what that means is you have to really use that keyword approach. It's a very targeted approach. It makes it easy for the ATS and any reader to see what you can do for this job. And I'm going to take a sidestep for a moment because, look, an ATS is an applicant tracking system. It's a searchable database. An ATS, if it can read that resume, those materials that you put in, it'll find those keywords anywhere on your resume, if they're there. But me, the dummy on my side of the desk or the screen, highlighting those keywords at the top, making them easy for me to read and see, tells me what you can do for this job. It focuses my eye. It immediately wants me to see more of that resume, to see where you're doing that, what you're talking about, and how that all fits for me, because you've already attracted my attention. So that keyword approach without the X, Y, Z, and Q, or with minimal X, Y, Z, and Q, okay, really helps to focus on the value that you bring for this job. Now, we all know that the disadvantage, and I hear this from so many people, is that customizing a resume every time takes time. And it's true, it does. But we know that you can do more than job posting. But when I'm doing my initial scan, that 2 to 9 second view of the resume, okay, once it actually gets in front of my eyes, I want to know, what my job is all about. I want to know what you can do for me. I want to know that you're excited to do what this job has to offer. So bottom line, people hire people to solve their problems. When you think about it, in a sense, and one of the people I reference a lot is Joey Himmelfarb, who says, if you're in job search, you're in sales. You're selling yourself, and that's true. And think about it. If you go into a sales situation and somebody says, here's this generic product and it can do X, Y, and Z, and you say, but I don't need X, Y, and Z. Okay. I'm looking for a standard basic car. I want something I can turn the key or punch the button and it will go and get me from point A to B. And the salesperson says, yes, that's true. But in addition, this car can also float. And if you get it up to speed, it'll fly, it'll jump over things, and it can house 20 people. Isn't that great? No, I really need to just get from A to B. Yes, but this can do so much more. You've turned me off. I want somebody who's listening to what I need, who can solve my problem. And employers are exactly the same. So the more you can do to focus in what you want to do, what you can do, to what the job is looking for, the more you can show that you can solve the company's problems, or more importantly, that hiring manager's problems, the more likely they are not only to want to talk with you, but to move forward within that process. So it's really important to focus on what you can do for them, not what you want, what you can do for them, and showing how you can solve their problems. What's in it for them really means that you're going to have to tailor things to their points of view. It means you're going to have to do some research. What's important, not just in the job posting. Too many people look at a job posting very quickly, and especially if you're doing it on LinkedIn or some of these other searches, you meet these criteria with X, Y, Z, and Q, right? You have all these great skills, and that's great, and then we stop reading. You have to read the entire job posting because, as Mindy mentioned with conversations like this, there are golden nuggets throughout it. Look at how many times somebody is mentioning that same skill, that same area that they want somebody to cover. If they're mentioning it more than twice, that's a hot button. If they mention it 3 times, they have an issue that they need somebody to deal with. Most people don't realize that. And that's not only telling you what you should put on your resume, but that's helping you focus in on those hot buttons for those interview stories that you want to start putting together, because you know what's going to be important to them. That means that you're tailoring everything, not just in terms from the posting itself, but the research you've done off that posting site, learning about the company, to what that employer values, what that employer needs. You're going to be using their language, the language from the posting when you can, because it's amazing. There's that unconscious feeling when somebody sees you using their words, he or she knows exactly what I mean. They speak my language. They're somebody I want to talk with because they already know what it's all about. So speak to their hot buttons, the problems they need to solve, not just the fact that they say I need somebody who knows QuickBooks or has done Agile stand-up meetings. All right, I'm curious, okay? You've heard the term emotional intelligence a lot, right? Can somebody in the chat give me just a quick couple of words? And I see this on a lot of resumes too. My EQ, my emotional intelligence, I've got that skill. What does emotional intelligence mean to you? Mindy, can you pick out a couple of real quick ones?
Yeah, we're going to give them a moment to type.
Yes,
Ask a
please.
question. They're going to need a few moments to think about that.
Okay.
Question is, do you know what EQ is, or do you know what emotional
Okay. If you've
intelligence?
added it on your resume, you talk about it in anything. You talk about it on LinkedIn. What is your EQ? Does it mean that you can put yourself in someone else's shoes? That you can think about something from their perspective? That you understand how to read those emotions and pull yourself out of the situation long enough to be able to pull the emotion out of it, right? So that you're not getting caught up in some of that, but be able to talk about it from their perspective, to understand things from their perspective.
Linda, I'll give you a couple that just came up, okay? Oh, it's going too fast. Ability to make decisions based on more than simple logic to bring emotions into the equation was one. That's from Chris. Thank you, Chris. Working to understand your biases and working to separate yourself from those when objectively viewing or managing someone or something else. From Scott, not let your emotions dictate your actions, think before and act after. Carrie put in empathy, which is a part of EQ, absolutely.
Yes.
Understanding people's needs. That's a good one. Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So these are all different elements. EQ is a huge area, but I think what Linda's going for is understanding what other people's view is, putting yourself in someone else's shoes to understand how they can help you, right? So if
Exactly right.
we're looking for a hiring manager to understand what we can do, we need to first understand what their needs are.
And that's exactly right. So what I want you to start thinking about, if you're in career transition of any kind, whether it's looking for that next forever job, that side hustle, or moving into your own business, you need to think, instead of just emotional intelligence, you want to think about situational intelligence. What's important for someone else? And when you're doing that, you're going to be changing the focus of your conversations. You're going to be changing the focus of what you're writing down. Instead of talking about tasks, you're going to be talking about accomplishments, actions, and impact. And you're going to be pulling what some of those are and using the language from the posting from the research that you've done. You're going to be reframing what you're saying. So instead of saying, I help companies do X, or you will be saying, excuse me, I help companies do X, not I need or want to do Y. It's again, not what you want, it's what you can do. And the more specific you can get when you get to the I help companies do X, based on what this company needs, what you're seeing in your research and in that posting, I'm really excited because here's something that I was able to do for somebody else like you. Now, you're not going to use those words. You're going to come up with the situations, with the accomplishments, with the impact that you've made to companies that are similar or in roles that are similar, so that people see you in their role, not just in the roles that you've had in the past. So you got to do your research. You have to figure out what's important for them. You want to know what kinds of challenges they're facing. In fact, we all know that you have to ask questions when you actually get into those conversations, whether it's a networking conversation or in the interview. And many of us struggle with the kinds of questions to ask. But if you want to build on that situational intelligence, you want to think about what kinds of challenges they're currently dealing with. What challenge I can't even talk. Do they foresee? My challenge right now is my mouth isn't working. What challenges do they foresee coming up in the future? If you're doing a conversation or asking questions after an interview, ask them why they joined the organization and why they stay. Because those will give you information about not just their values, but what's going on in the company. You can even ask what they're really excited about and what keeps them up at night. For all of those conversations, all of those questions, whether it's networking, whether it's in the interview itself, build on what you've learned from one conversation to the next to build trust and demonstrate your value, because you now know what those hot buttons are. You know what their concerns are, and your goal is to demonstrate that you're the person who can help them solve that problem, deal with that challenge, and help them move forward from here to there. The goal is to show how you can solve their problems. So if we're talking about it, what's in it for them should be part of everything you're doing, whether it's in job search or career transition. It's part of your resume, your cover letter, your interview stories. Needs to be using their words, focusing in on more than just those keywords that you want to throw into the ATS so that you're overloading things. It's showing how you can solve their problem. When you're talking about your accomplishments, we know that you can do a lot, but you're going to pull those most significant accomplishments for the resume, the cover letter, for your interview stories that are based on the problems they're currently facing, the challenges they have, and how you can demonstrate that you did it somewhere else, and now you can do it for them. You want to make that assumption easy for them to make. You want to write things in a way that says, I want to know more, not, I don't know what that means. So focus in on the actions, the activities, the accomplishments, the results. When you're networking, it's the same thing. In a networking situation, if we're talking about that what's in it for them approach, it's how can I help? You want to give much more than you get. You always want to think about how did they get there if you're doing that networking strategy? What do they like about what they're doing? What advice do they have? It's not asking them for a job. It's asking them for advice. And more importantly, it's asking how you can support them as you move forward. And that what's in it for them also carries through to your professional presence. Whether you're commenting or connecting with people, putting information in your profile section, in your headline in LinkedIn. The focus is not about what you want, although in your about section, sure. And in your headline, sure, include some job titles if you're in job search. In your about section, include some of the things that brought you to where you are and where you want to make that transition from here to there. But the focus is what you can do for someone else, why they should talk to you. People remember people who can solve their problems, people who can make things better for them. So bottom line is that what's in it for them isn't just a mindset for job or career search. It really is a life skill because you use it in so many different ways. And now, I know I went through that relatively quickly, but let's go ahead and if there are some questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Linda, I love your ending. I love that because thinking about it as a life skill, whenever you put yourself in someone else's position, you are building relationships, and that's everything about networking is building relationships. So I love the way you ended that. It was beautiful.
Good, thank you.
We did have 2 questions in the chat. So I'm going to see if they want to get on screen. The first one was from Chris Palermo and the second was from Kerry Drobner. So if you want to ask Linda a question, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, that would be great. That way I can recognize you and call you in. If not, and you want to put it into the chat, then I can obviously speak for you. Chris, thank you. He asked a question in the chat, but he's also raised his hand. Chris, you're a great listener. Thank you so much.
Hi, Chris.
How are you? So my question regarding the early part about the key skills and if they're looking for ABC and you give them ABCDEF, that is a potential negative because they assume you're now looking for more money. You're not, either you don't understand what they're looking for, where it used to be a great thing because, hey, look how much we're getting for the money we're looking to spend.
Right.
I think you're going to hold them over the barrel. So, and I understand that. That makes total sense to me. However, irrespective of those key skills, if isn't it a problem if, for example, you have a resume, and I mean, at the end of the day, our resume is predominantly factually based, years,
Yes.
it'll company. And now I'm applying for a job because the market is tough, and I apply for a job as a specialist, and so I can do ABC because ABC is part of the job. And I say, here's what I can do, ABC. But then they go to my resume and they say, oh, he was a manager and he was a director and he was a senior director. So now, irrespective of the skills I've listed, they're still looking at my titles. Do you recommend in that case dumbing down the titles as well, figuring that even if they do call ahead to company ABC and they go, oh, we understand Chris was a specialist there, company ABC is not going to go specialist. No, he was a senior director. He was making seven figures like that. I mean, I wasn't making seven figures, but still, how do you navigate that particular predicament where your title may in fact even trump your skill offerings?
Right. So I understand because I hear this from a lot of people, and it is an issue, especially when your title is different than the title of the job you're looking at. The first thing to remember is that titles really don't mean much except, okay, well, I shouldn't say that. Titles vary so much from company to company that, right, when you're on LinkedIn, you need to make sure that you're using a drop-down title that's recognized, even if you're adding something to the title that you used to have. But when you're doing that role, when you're saying, I'm going from manager to individual contributor, as an example, remember I said that professional summary is really about what you can do for them? In that professional summary, in your cover letter, you're going to make it clear, choosing to focus in on, okay, in your conversations. It's basically, I've been there, done that, had the t-shirt, now I'm going to do what I really enjoy. And so in the materials that you're submitting in writing, it's at this point in my career, I've decided it's okay to focus in on what I enjoy. Now I've done the management role and I'm happy to continue to do that and to mentor and train. But what I want to do right now, this role intrigues me so much. It gives me an opportunity to bring the skills that I have, learn a new industry, apply it here, bring you my skill set, and focus in on the things that I really enjoy and do well. So it becomes a choice, not I can't find anything else.
So, and this may be interrelated to the ATS question. I know ATSs can search for keywords and say, hey, this person meets those needs. Can they also, and I assume they can, kick people out based on things? So for example, and again, ATS is still derivative of the programmer, like this doesn't come built in. You have to say, this is what I'm looking for. Is it not possible that the hiring manager or the company could say, hey, anyone who has a title of manager or director or senior lead or whatever, we just don't even want to see them. Now, irrespective of what your summary says, irrespective of how passionate your cover letter is, you're never getting viewed by a human being. It is literally getting into the system. It's going, oh, look, this person has 20 years experience. No, we don't want them. Gone. And I guess that when you're getting 20 to 30 applicants for a role, that's not as big of a deal. When you're getting 1,000 in the first 2 hours, it needs to be, and admittedly, of those 1,000, let's say 800 aren't even qualified. But you still have to get through them in some capacity. And the easiest way is by using an ATS and saying, these are the very broad strokes I want you to swing with. And if I lose someone great, I'm willing to take that because I'm not going to spend 800 hours reviewing every resume from this guy was a circus juggler and now he wants to be my head neuroscientist. No, we're not going to do that. So I think that's part of the issue there. I get it comes back to the idea of making a connection, certainly more than anything else, and having that audience in some ways. But it's hard to be optimistic. I will say that it's very hard to be optimistic given the fight of the job.
Okay, so a couple of things. Yes, there may be 1,000 applicants there, and you're absolutely right. Less than 20% of those are actually going to be a fit. Okay, too many people are either sending an AI resume or they're just spraying and praying. They're sending the same resume to everybody. Okay, and that's really easy to tell. More importantly, if you're looking at LinkedIn and you're seeing the numbers, or you're looking on Indeed, it's people who've clicked into the job, not necessarily people who've applied. So the numbers are misleading to begin with. If you're matching 75 to 80% of the job, it's still an important thing for you to go to. Now, in terms of, am I going to screen you out by title? I suppose it's possible. Okay, if I have LinkedIn Recruiter, if I'm doing a specific job search for somebody, I may search for the title, but it's not going to tell me how long ago you had that title. It's not going to tell me in between. And for the most part, that title isn't going to be my first search criteria. Think about those as a Boolean search, right? So if I've got that 200 resumes that may be appropriate, and I'm trying to narrow down that field, I'm going to use those terms that are going to be most likely to help me narrow the field from here to here. Now, I'm not going to tell you that in ATS that I won't put something in and say, put those people who have title of director at the bottom of the list. Okay, I might do that. But it's still, at this point, okay, it is still humans who are putting in those criteria. Okay, and the ATS will sort those resumes for me. And one of the things that I loved about every ATS system that I've used is that it's almost as if when I put in my criteria, the ATS will send me those resumes with almost a yellow highlighter for those terms that I've highlighted. So I can easily see them where they are on the page and where they were in your background. One more thing, Chris, is that I'm not talking about dumbing down your resume, but you are going to customize your resume. So you're focusing in on the individual activities that you did, even within those manager titles. And the accomplishments that you bring up to the top are going to be those that you're doing in that individual contributor kind of role, even within that director role. The things you specifically do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris, I just want to add one thing to Linda's excellent response. I am a very big believer in customizing the resume before it goes out. And that does not mean changing everything about it. It means tweaking it so that it is aligned with the language that the company is asking for. You need to speak their language. And so, simple example, if the job description is always speaking about clients and you start using the word customer,
right,
they may not get it. Okay, and so you want to be, when Linda says read that job description, you need to actually study that job description and really understand the nuances of what they're saying. When they say fast-paced environment, you better believe it. It's probably 10 times as fast as you think it is. So the things that they put into a job description are really critical. Understanding the language, making sure that your language is similar and it's aligned, and making sure that you are raising to the top the accomplishments that they will see and quickly understand, oh, that's what I'm looking for in this guy. He did X, Y, and Z, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. Make sure that those are the top. Remember, yes, after the if you make it through the ATS, you have a human being reading that thing. You've got it, and they focus a very short period of time on it. Your top couple of bullets better hit the mark for what they're looking for. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of tweaking your resume. You've got to bring those important points to the top.
Absolutely. And you're right. They have 2 to 9 seconds to decide how much more time they want to spend. And you think that's strange. I've actually timed it. And that's really what it is. So if you're highlighting what you can do for them, that's important. And when Mindy said things like fast-paced environment, you want to bring to the top of your resume one of those accomplishments that you did and mention that it was in that kind of fast-paced, so X number of things at a time, switching from A to B to C, right? Short time frames. You're talking about that fast-paced environment. You don't have to use the word fast-paced environment, but it will still, if it's right up at the top, it will absolutely tell me that that's what it is. Okay, so make sure that you're focusing what you're bringing to the top, the 2 to 6 most important accomplishments, achievements, things that of value that you're bringing right to the top without talking about where they were or when they were. Perfect. Thank you.
Is that helpful, Bruce? Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. I know Kerry had a question. Kerry, do you want to come on screen?
Sure. Can you see me?
I can't see you.
Okay, Al, I can see your thing in the chat. Absolutely.
There we
Love
go. I
adding
see
that
now.
selected accomplishments. I call it exactly the same thing. Okay, right up at the top, it's either selected accomplishments or highlights. But it's those 2 to 8 most significant things that you've done anywhere in your history that match that new job. It's a very easy spot to find it, and it focuses my eye directly. And one of the things too is that by pulling some of those accomplishments into that selected accomplishment section up at the top, they make them visually more transferable. You're not tying it to another company. You're not tying it to another time frame. You're really saying, here's what I did someplace else. Ta-da! I can do it for you. I'm sorry, Carrie, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no. I just hated being spotlight. My question is, I have a meeting tonight, a networking meeting, and there is no job description. It's simply exploratory. What can I do to prepare myself for that meeting?
So this is a networking meeting with one individual or many?
It's one individual, it's video, and it's one individual at a company I've been trying to get myself into, and it's a networking opportunity.
So have you done your research about the company?
I did, to the extent that I understand it.
Okay. Have you done your research on the individual? In other words, you've seen what
I
their
have
journey
not
is.
done my research on the individual. That's a
Okay.
good point.
So the idea is when you're doing this kind of networking, and I love it, to me, if you go into it as an informational interview, as opposed to, gee, let's have a quick conversation, and then can you walk my resume down the hall? Okay, they don't know you yet. But the idea is to focus in on learning about them.
Okay.
So those questions that I mentioned earlier, that idea of, gee, you've got a really interesting background. Can you tell me how you made this shift from here to here? What are you liking about this kind of a role? Tell me what challenges you're facing. Okay.
I was
What's
thinking
working
about
for
me.
you?
I wasn't thinking about him. So yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Things like you made that shift from A to B. What helped you do that? Okay. You've been with this company for a while. What do you like? What would you change?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. But that's the focus on them. And then the last 2 questions for them, this first conversation would be, what suggestions do you have for me if I choose to make a move into a role like this? What advice do you have? Who else would you suggest I speak with? They will at that point usually turn it around to you and give you the opportunity to talk about what you want. And you may at that point be able to leverage that into, gee, I'm really interested in your company. But in the beginning, it's all about them.
Yeah. And that's exactly the mind shift that we're talking about today. Thinking about the questions that you ask should be 100% focused on what they do or what their company's about. Things that you have noticed about the company. Oh, I noticed that you just bought another company. How is that going to impact this particular role?
Mhm.
Any research that you have done is super important. So to show, number one, that you're curious, your mind is there and you're thinking. Number two, you're interested in the company. And number three, you want to hear what he has or she has to say. So the questions you ask are super important. And I will tell you that when we do interview prep, I do interview prep a lot with people. The questions that you ask are sometimes more important than the questions that you answer. They should
Absolutely
be
true.
thoughtful. You should be very focused on the company, the individual. When you go on LinkedIn, there's so much information there, or even on their website. There's a ton of information out there that you can glean and then start forming questions based on that.
Mhm.
Super important. You have
Absolutely.
a fabulous opportunity, Carrie. That's a wonderful opportunity for you.
Thank you.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer in those informational interviews. By the way, before you meet her, him, sorry. Don't just go to their profile, okay? Make sure you're reading that, but check to see what kinds of things they might have been posting, who they follow. It gives you some of those added things that you can ask questions about. And I'm a believer in sending a LinkedIn connection request at this point. Your only message is, I'm looking forward to our conversation. That's it. By the way, speaking about LinkedIn requests and connections, go ahead and connect with me. I'm happy to talk with anybody, connect with anybody, and have a quick conversation with anyone who's interested.
Carrie, I'm going to add one more thing to what Linda just mentioned. If you notice that the individual that you're meeting with is posting on LinkedIn, go in and comment on their posts. That's a huge service that you're doing for him, and he will know that you.
I think
Oh,
she
anyone?
froze.
Mindy,
He
I
can
don't know whether
follow
you're
you
frozen or I am.
before your interview with him tonight, and then after, just to keep yourself top of mind. Super important, easy, very easy.
Absolutely. Okay, I see something from Julie in the chat about, can the selected accomplishments be 2 lines each, or should they only be a single? They can be up to 2 lines. I wouldn't go beyond 2 lines. If it's beyond 2 lines, you're really talking 2 bullets. But you've all heard about the STAR story. This is a START story, but you're only listing part of it. It's STAR story is situation, task, action, result. I add a T at the end for transferability or tie-in. But when you're talking about those accomplishments, all you're really talking about is the result and the action. And if all you're talking about is the result, that's okay too. Here's what you were able to accomplish. Here's what it was, why it was important. And try and pull those things that match what the new job is looking for, what those challenges are.
Linda, we have a question from Daksha. Daksha, would you like to be spotlighted, or would you like me to read your question? What's your preference?
Hi, can you hear me?
I do hear you. You sound beautiful. I can hear you.
Okay,
What's your
thank
question?
you. I think technology is working now. My question is how someone knows their resume will pass ATS. I hear that one lot. Litmus test, is every company ATS setup is unique, different, or what?
And I'm sorry, I was having trouble hearing you.
Okay, so I'll start, Linda, and then you can add in. So
Please.
Daksha's question is every ATS system unique? Here's my answer. There are many, many, many different types of ATS systems. Okay, number one. Number two, most companies, when they have access to an ATS system, they tend to modify it to suit their own needs. So even if company A and company B have purchased the same ATS system from company XYZ, each one may have modified it differently to suit their own needs. So in answer to your question, we, as the people who are sending things into the ATS system, have no idea what system they're using. We have to assume that they're all unique. We have to assume that we cannot predict what that ATS system is programmed to do. And the other thing we can assume is that the job postings, okay, that you're seeing, that's what you're seeing, and that's all the information we really have from, in most cases, is what we need to be focusing on, because we can't possibly know what's behind the scenes. And company A may do something very different. But the job description, the language in the job description is your key into the role.
So in other words, ATS
Does that answer
system
your question,
is kind of
Daksha?
a software computer program,
I think she's
right?
frozen.
And they
She looks a little frozen.
put all the resumes into it, and then the software gives the answer.
So there are over 200.
Respond, anything else beyond what I
There are
said?
over 200 major ATS systems. Okay. An ATS system is an applicant tracking system. It is an applicant searching system. It is not an applicant throw out all these resumes system. If the ATS can read your resume, which means that it's in a plain, dull, boring format, right? no text boxes, no tables, no icons, no major lines, none of that. If it can read it, it can sort it. It'll find those keywords. The human programs it each time to say, here's what I'm looking for.
Got you.
Okay. Humans go in and they say, here are the things that I'm looking for. Now, I may feed in my job description, but it's not like JobScan where it's going to try and do an exact match between A and B. And unless there are knockout questions that either I, as the recruiter, put in up front, okay, that you have to answer, or that I'm putting into the system saying, do not send me anybody who does not have X, then the ATS system isn't going to screen you out. The ATS system will sort those resumes and tell me which ones to look at first.
Got you. Thank you.
You're welcome. At least now.
We have two more questions and both
Sure.
quick. One was from Lisa. Length of the resume, what's your feeling about that?
Long enough to do the job, but no more than 2 pages, unless you're in an academic or government kind of role.
I am on the same page as Linda, no more than 2 pages unless, and there's always an unless. In some educational systems, you need to put all of your publications, and that's
Correct.
a situation. And the other one was from Cindy. Is it okay to send a LinkedIn invitation to the recruiter or hiring manager?
At what point are you talking about? And my feeling is yes. Okay. So, for example, if you're going into an interview, you know that they're looking at your profile. You want to do the same thing, and you want to let them know that you're looking at their profile. So my feeling is that if you've got the name of somebody you will be interviewing with, you send them that connection request, whether they accept it now or not. It tells them you're doing your due diligence too, just as they are. And your connection message is, I'm looking forward to our conversation on such and such a day. Okay, we're talking with you about. If you're doing it beforehand, and there's nothing wrong with that, you can do it and say, you know, I've just applied, it's a great position. Please take a look. And that can be your connection message, either to the recruiter or to the hiring manager if you can figure out who that is. You have nothing to lose by sending out that connection message, other than the fact that they turn it down. But you never know who's going to say yes. And by the way, you increase your chances of them saying yes if you have a full, complete LinkedIn profile, if your picture is available to everyone on LinkedIn, not just first level connections, if your full name is available to everyone on LinkedIn, not just first level connections, if your profile is complete, including that about section, okay? If you have started to connect with people from that company and make those conversations. Even if you've never had a conversation, if you've just had that connection request and it's been accepted, I can see that you are connected to other people in my company. And that's starting to make a difference from a hiring manager, from a recruiters and hiring managers perspective.
And I'll give you one other tip, and then we're gonna end the call. If you start commenting on the people you want to connect with before you ask for that connection request, it is far more likely that someone will accept that connection request because your name will become familiar to them. I cannot stress enough how important commenting is, because it brings your name to the top of their mind. And you want to stay top of mind to anyone that you're trying to impress or trying to get an interview with. So commenting, make mindful, educated comments, put in your point of view, respectfully, of course, but commenting is the key to building relationships. And I would always comment before you ask to connect. There are a lot of people who will not connect with you if they don't know who you are. So,
by the way, I'm sorry, Mindy, but a comment is not just,
first.
hey, great post. A comment is something that helps to move the conversation forward. It could
Yes.
be asking a question. It could be something that shows you've actually read it and that you want to participate in what's going on. Remember, people connect with, people hire, people network with, people support people they know, like, and trust. And your goal on LinkedIn, in those comments, in those networking requests, in all of these conversations, is to demonstrate that you are one of those people. And you do that with a very focused kind of a comment strategy. So,
Yeah, rule of thumb, get to 8 to 12 words. Make sure it's not a wow or congrats. That doesn't do it. LinkedIn is looking for a dialogue. That's what they reward, dialogue. And we're not going to get into the algorithm today at all. That's a whole nother story. I'm going to leave that to Al. I'm going to have Al come back at some future point to talk about all the algorithm nonsense that we have to deal with. But think about it from a human point of view. You want to have a connection with a person. You want to start a dialogue. If you were in a networking meeting, you wouldn't just be sending around thumbs up. You wouldn't be walking around a networking meeting going like this to everybody, right? Thumbs up. You would look very foolish. But you might go in and talk to someone and say, hey, how are you? What do you think of this place? And I see you're doing X, Y, and Z. So
right.
it's like a huge networking party.
Absolutely. And yes, the idea is that it should be at least 8 to 12 words. I think that number keeps changing in terms of what the comment is, for LinkedIn to recognize it in that way.
So Linda, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I'm gonna give you my pom-poms. Let's all give Linda some love. If you have your hearts out there or whatever, give Linda some love. Thank you so much, Linda, for all you do for so many. And we are so grateful that you were here today. For all of you, we're so grateful that I'm going to give you some heart and love too. We're so grateful that you joined us today. If you have any questions, you know that you can reach out to us. We're always happy to help you. Linda, again, thank you so much for your time. Al, thank you for being here. Cindy, Julie, John, Greg, Lisa, Lori, Chris, Scott, Marianne, Michelle, Alex, thank you all for being here today. If I miss anyone, we're so proud of you, and we know that you can do it. You're awesome. Go out there and make it an awesome day.
Thank you all for having me, for the great questions and the conversations. I appreciate it.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you, Mindy.